Good morning. Hope you are all well. Maseches Kesubos Daf Yomi, Shabbos is Daf. Doing a little bit early Friday morning. We'll be starting at the very top of Daf Yud Amud Aleph, first word, and we'll be going all the way to the top of Yud Aleph Amud Aleph, a full blot, to the Mishnah there. We've been discussing the tainas, the taina of the husband of Pesach Pasuach Matzasi, that if a man is intimate with his wife and his wife should be a basula, he should be able to sense that there's a basulam there, and if he doesn't, based on the Gemara that we saw yesterday in Kesubos Daf Tes, the halacha is that he's ne'eman la'osra alav. And the Gemara is trying to figure out how that all balances out in regards to one other aspect. And what's that? That is the aspect of the ksuba itself. Itmar, Amar Rav Nachman Amar Shmuel, Mishum Reb Shimon ben Elazar, Chachamim tiknu lehem lebnos Yisrael. The Chachamim put a takana in place, lebesula masayim ule almana mana, that when it comes to the ksuba itself, that for a besula, she should be getting masayim zuz, 200 zuz worth of money in the event that her husband would divorce her, and le almana, and for a woman who has already been married, for an almana, the halacha is mana that she should get 100 mana. Now the institution of the ksuba is to make it a little bit more difficult for a husband to divorce his wife. And just like they were able to institute this takana to offset that concern, to make sure that he won't flippantly divorce her, similarly, v'heim ha'eminuhu she'im amar pesach pasuach matzasi ne'eman. Meaning they're both dinei derabbanan. Obviously, pesach pasuach is a person can just rattle off the phrase pesach pasuach matzasi, and then their whole marriage is in shambles. We don't want that to happen to a woman. We want her to be protected in her marriage. Therefore, we have a ksuba to offset. So this is the balancing act. That's the Gemara. Im kain mahu ilu chachamim b'takanasa. Wow. I mean, well, if you can say so quickly Pesach Pasuach Matzasi, then who cares if you have a ksuba? He'll just say Pesach Pasuach Matzasi and end the marriage. Says the Gemara, we have a psychological assumption over here. Amar Rava, 8 lines down. Chazaka ein adam tarech b'seuda umafsida. This guy doesn't have an angle to divorce his wife on day one. Nobody does that. If they are going to spend $100,000 on their wedding, they're not going to flippantly divorce their spouse. So Rava says that the psychology here is that once we have everything in place, they've already spent all the money on the wedding. There's a ksuba in place that he's going to have to pay if he divorces her. And then he says, Pesach Pasuach Matzasi, it just must be true. It just must be true. It's not worth it for him to go through all of the effort to spend all of that money, all the agmas nefesh, for it to not be true. And therefore, halachically speaking, we trust a person to say Pesach Pasuach Matzasi, because after all that he has gone through in regards to preparing for the wedding, and all that he'll need to go through in paying the ksuba, 200 zuz, so that's too much. Therefore, we believe him, and he's ne'eman la'osra alav. Tana, the Gemara has a very interesting brisa. The knas chachamim, since the ksuba is a knas, it's a slap on the wrist. Lo tigba elamina ziboris. We'll learn later in Shas that ziboris is a low quality type of property. There's edis, beinonis, and ziboris. Edis is a very high level of quality, and beinonis is average, and ziboris is lower quality. Let's just use this as a rough example. You have gold that's 100% pure, 90% pure, and 80% pure. So the halacha is that she can collect mina ziboris. That if you have to give her a ksuba, she can collect from the lowest quality of your properties. Says the Gemara, what's the language of knasa? Knasa, my knasa. What? It's not a knas. No one's being punished for anything. A ksuba is used to pay a woman in the case where unfortunately it's not a knas. The Gemara says you're right, it's not a knas. Because the institution of a ksuba is a din derabbanan, it's only rabbinic in nature. So when she collects, she cannot force the husband, now the ex-husband, to pay from the highest quality. She can only force him to pay from the ziboris, from the lowest quality properties. Now, up until now, for these first 10, 12 lines of the Gemara is under the assumption that a ksuba is a din derabbanan, but that is not the accepted psak for all Tanaim. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, that's not true. Ksuvas isha min haTorah. A ksuvas isha is a din deoraisa. And this goes back to question what we started today. We wanted to say that just like the Chachamim instituted this idea of a ksuba, so too they can say that Pesach Pasuach Matzasi is ne'eman la'osra alav. But that's only true if they're both rabbinic. But this is not both rabbinic. Here we see that a ksuba might be deoraisa. And if a ksuba is deoraisa, so then maybe or maybe not, he should or should not be trusted when it comes to Pesach Pasuach Matzasi. Says the Gemara, hang on one second. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel hachi. Is Rav Shimon ben Gamliel really of the opinion that a ksuba is doraisa. This brisa seems to indicate not that way, starting with the sheet of the Tanakama, and then we'll see Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. What does the brisa say? Quarter of the way down, Vatanya. The pasuk says, "Kesef yishkol kemohar habisulos." He should take money like the mohar of bisulos. So this pasuk is referring to a case scenario. If you look at the full pasuk, if you have it on the side, the full pasuk reads, that if a woman is violated, then mohar yimharen lo leisha, then he should pay her a mohar. He should pay her some money. That if a woman is violated, then he has to pay. Doesn't say in this passage, he has to pay 50 shekel. Kimohar habisulos. Shehezeh kimohar habisulos. Mohar habisulos kizeh. Meaning that we have to pay, just like there's a dowry, just like there's a payment by a case of an na'ara or rasa, so too there's a dowry in regards to a marriage, and that is the money in the ksuba. Mikan, says the Tanakama, samchu chachamim l'ksubas isha min haTorah. So the Tanakama says we infer from here, the chachamim infer from here that this is a din d'oraisa. But Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel Omer ksubas isha eina midivrei Torah midivrei sofrim. So 5 lines ago you wanted to say that Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says ksubas isha min haTorah. Here we seem to say clearly, the black on white, that it's midivrei sofrim. It's only rabbinic in nature. Says the Gemara, no problem. Answer number 1 is epuch. Just switch things around. You should switch the shitas around. You got the Tanakama and the Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel backwards, and really the Tanakama is the strict one who says that it is the lenient one who says it's derabanan, and Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says it's deoraisa. Says the Gemara, why would you switch the brisa around? Why did you switch the brisa? Maybe the brisa is perfectly fine, and our initial presentation of Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel is incorrect, and really he holds it as derabanan. So says the Gemara, we cannot do that. So we already know from another Mari Makom that Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel holds that Kesubos isha is doraisa. It's not. The Mishnah writes halfway down, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel Omer nosin lamimos kaputkia, that if Rashi, it paints the case for us, that if a person gets married in Kaputkia and then they move to Eretz Yisrael, it's the difference between the American dollar and most other economies' dollars. The American dollar is stronger. So here's how it works. If you get married in Kaputkia, the equivalent to America, and then you move to a third world country where every dollar is worth hundreds of pesos or hundreds of whatever the other economy is. So Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says you have to pay with the higher of the standards, Kaputkia. Well, remember, we learned earlier in the Gemara that because it's derabanan, the woman can only collect from zibris, which is the lowest quality property that you have. But for Kaputkia, you have to, if you get married in Kaputkia in a higher economy, you have to get paid in that dollar because it's much more valuable. So what do we see from there? It must be that it's deoraisa. So therefore, answer number 1 of the Gemara is that really Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel holds that Kesubos isha is doraisa, and this brisa that presented him is derabanan. We have to flip the shitas. And here is answer number 2. Ibais ema. Really, we could say that there's another possible answer here. And what's this next possible answer? That kula Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, that really everything is Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. Really, all of these shitas belong to Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. Here is the best way to learn all of these Mari Makomos. Really, this brisa that was seemingly confusing, the brisa that presented the 2 shitas as a machlokes, Tanakama versus Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, it's not a machlokes. Here's how to read it. The chachamim do hold the Kesubos isha as deoraisa. However, Kesubos almana eina midivrei Torah midivrei sofrim. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel omer Kesubos almana eina midivrei Torah ela midivrei sofrim. So really, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel himself understands as follows: when it comes to a man marrying a basula, the contract, the ksuba that he gives to her, that's a Kesubos deoraisa. Masha'en kain, when there is an almana, when there is a woman who's been married before, there the ksuba is only derabanan. This second answer works. We're now going to have literally 6 stories, one after the next, which will bring us to the Mishnah at the bottom of Yud Amud Beis, and then we'll wrap up to the top of the page with that new Mishnah. Story number 1. Where are we? We're almost 2/3 of the way down. Hahu de asa lekame de Rav Nachman. There was a man who brought a shaila to Rav Nachman. Amar le Pesach basuach matzasi. It's the next morning. They got married on Wednesday. Thursday morning he comes to Bezdin. He says to Rav Nachman, Pesach basuach matzasi. Amar le, Rav Nachman says to him, Amar le Rav Nachman, asbuhu kufri. We need to beat him with a branch. Mavrachta chavitale, because he's been with prostitutes before. He's been with women. How does this guy who's a ben yeshiva know what it means Pesach basuach matzasi?
Thinking that he was just married beforehand.
Can't be. Oh, we'll see if that's a possibility. But obviously here he's getting beaten for what he did. Why? How do you know what a Pesach Basuch means? You've never had Tashmish Hamita before. So says the Gemara, he gets hit. Hold on 1 second. But Rav Nachman, who Amar Mehemen, Rav Nachman, we saw at the top of the page, Rav Nachman on the very top of the page. Remember our first line? Itmar Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman said that just like a Kesubos is the Rabbanon, therefore we trust the fact that he says Pesach Basuch Matsasi. So what do you mean you're giving him lashes? Says the Gemara, both. Mehemen, Umas Bina Le Kupri. I believe him. But if he's right about her Pesach Pasuch, it means he knows what Tashmish Hamita is and he slept with other women, therefore he needs lashes. I believe you. You're saying the emes. But if you know what a Pesach Pasuch is, it means you've slept with someone before. And therefore you get lashes. So both. I believe you. You are now usher to your wife, but I'm also giving you malchus. Rav Achoy Mishani gave a different answer. Khan, this is Michael's answer. Khan bebachur, Khan benasu. If the guy is a bachur, he's young, he's never been married before, and he's claiming Pesach Basuch Matzasi, you get beaten. Yeah, you deserve malchus. But Kan ben Nasu, if a man's been married before and he knows the difference, okay, then he doesn't get malchus. So those would be the two versions of Rav Nachman according to this story. Story number 2. Someone brought a shiur to Rabban Gamliel. Omar Le Pesach Pasuach Matzasi. He says that I was with my wife last night and she was Pasuach, first night of marriage. Omar Le Shema Hitisa. Maybe you had Tashmish Hamita in such a way where you avoided the Basulim. Em Shaloch Mashal Ma'adavar Rabban Gamliel paints the picture. La'adam Shem Halach Be'ishon Laila Va'afel. A person's walking pitch black at night. Hita, if he turns sideways, then Mitzvah Pasuach. If he turns sideways, the door is only based on the width. If he stands sideways, he can fit in this way, he can fit in sideways, but he can't fit in facing forward. So this is the mashal that he's giving, that if a person turns sideways, so then Hita Mitzvah Pasuach, then you can get in, then you can make it into the door. Lo Hita, if you're walking straight with your shoulders wide, then Mitzvah no, then you will find that the door is locked. So obviously, what does this mean? The nimshal is that there's a way to have Tashmish Hamita where you can avoid the Basulim. Fine. That Shema b'mezid hitisa ve'akarta l'dasha ve'abra. Maybe what happened is you intentionally did hataya, not accidental. You intentionally did hataya, tashmish hamita, in that circuitous way to make sure that you're not. But here it wasn't circuitous with an accident; it was on purpose. In other words, instead of having regular tashmish hamita, which would break the basulim in its center, here if you have hataya on the side, more to the side of the body, so then you could uproot the entire basulim from the side wall, which means that the entire piece of skin is intact, but just moved over. It's broken from one side. Pitch black dark. If he runs into the door full strength, he's going to break the door. And if you're not intentionally trying to break the door down, then maybe you won't break the door down. Oh, it's fine. Those are the mishalim that he gives. But basically, it's either intentional or not. But it's still possible that there was hataya. It's possible that there was no sensation of something blocking him during Tashmish Hamita. Story number 3, 5 lines from the bottom. Amar le Rabbi Ba'alti lo matzasi damai. Tashmish Hamita. He doesn't say Pesach Pasach. He says I didn't find any blood. Amra lo Rabbi Besula Hayisi. She says, Rabbi, I promise you, I was a Besula. Amar le Mevilo so sudar. Bring me the cloth upon which Tashmish Hamita took place, and I'll be able to tell. Hevilo asudar shroba ma'im v'chipsu. They gave him the cloth that they had used for Tashmish Hamita. Ushroba ma'im, he soaked it in water. He did some whatever their laundry was. And then they found some damim. Oh, so says the Gemara, Amar lo, the Rebbe says back to the Talmud, you can be satisfied with your acquisition. The woman that you married she's a bastora, she's a basula. We see that there's blood here, and therefore we know that she had a basula. Amar le huna marbarei de Rava mi prazkia the Rav Ashi. Maybe we can use this trick as well, that when a couple comes in and says Pesach Basuch Matzasi, or when they say that there was no dam, we can check. Let's do the laundry. Now, this was well after the time of Rabbi, who was the person who did it? It was Rabbi, right? Rabbi Gamliel bar Rebbe. So it was Rabbi Gamliel who was a Tana. This was into the times of the Amoremer. They had different types of laundry. So it says the Gemara, Amar Le, it's not going to work. Top of Daf Yudam and Beis. Giyut shalanu kekibus shelahem. Our giyuts, the way that we do our laundry, Rashi says they used to use some type of glass. That's a top Rashi giyuts. They use be'evan hazachuchis. They would use some kind of type of glass to help press their clothing. And he says, "B'amris ne'avid giyuts." If you're going to say that we should use our giyuts, then ma'abra le'chumrasa, then it's going to remove any stains. Therefore, our trick won't work for them. So you can't use this trick. Fine. Says the Gemara, top of Yudam Bey, second line, story number 4. Amar le, he said to him, Rebbe Ba'alti v'lo dam, I didn't find any blood. Amar le, she said to him, Rebbe Adain Besulani. She says, I'm still a Besula. Amar lahen heviu shtei shifchos achas besula v'achas beula. Bring me 2 maidservants, one who is a virgin and one who is not. Heviu lo v'hoshivan al pichavis shel yayin. And they brought both of the women and sat both of them over a barrel of wine. Beula recha nodeh, if the woman who has had tashmish amita, we would be able to smell wine on her breath. Basula ein recha nodeh. And if she's a virgin, we will not be able to. Avzu, then they took his wife, Hoshiva v'lo haya recha nodef, and they saw that there was no recha nodef, implying that she's still a basula. Therefore, Amar lo, he says to her, Lech zakeh b'mekchacha, you've married a beautiful woman, she's a basula, and you need to have tashmish amita again, and it just means you didn't consummate your marriage. V'nivdok meikara begava. Why did we bring the shvachos? If this trick works of sitting her on a barrel, why do we bring the shvachos? Great question. Says the Gemara have a shmi'aleh. He had heard the tradition that if women sit on a barrel that it works, that you can smell the difference in their breath. But Maisa lo have a chazi. He never saw that it actually took place. And he said, V'savar dil melokim lebegava. Maybe this trick won't work. Demilsa shapir. V'lav orach ara lizolzul lebibnos Yisrael. It's not appropriate to do this with a Bas Yisrael. Bas Yisrael is such a high caliber of a human being. That's not something that we're willing to put her through. But these particular shvachos were prutos. That they don't care. It doesn't matter. So by them, if they don't care, then that's not a problem. But a Bas Yisrael would care. Story number 5, third of the way down. Who does the zaken? A man comes to Bezdin and says that he was meshamish with his wife the night prior and didn't find any dam, but she should be a basula. Amar lo, she says, Rabbi mi mishpachas dorkati ani she'ein lahen lo dam nida lo dam basulam. They're from a particular family. They don't bleed. They don't have dam nida and they don't have dam basulam. It says the Gemara, he checked into the family lineage and found that was taka the case, that she was from that family. Amar lo, he says, don't worry about the lack of blood. And he gave a compliment. You married into a wonderful family. Why is it so wonderful, says the Gemara? My dorkati, dorkatua, that's a terrible thing, not a good thing. Dorkati is dorkatua, that the generations will be cut off, meaning she's less likely to have children because of her medical issues that she doesn't menstruate. So it says the Gemara, Amar of Chanina, Tanchum shel hevel nichmu. These are not, this is not real comfort, this is pretend comfort. Rabban Gamliel lo soish, it wasn't really comfort. The Tani Reb Chia, Kishem shehas seor yafel isa, just like yeast is good to make bread grow, kach, to make bread, kach damim yafel isha. So too is the case that a woman has to menstruate. If she has blood, then she's more likely to get pregnant. If a woman has a lot of blood, so then she's more likely to have a lot of children. So why would Rabban Gamliel say that it was such a compliment? Itma Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba Amar zakei b'mekchacha Amar le. Yes, he did say to him something positive, that you've merited a wonderful family, a wonderful woman. Rabbi Yossi bar Avin Amar nischai b'mekchacha. You've become chayiv in your purchase, Amar le. So says the Gemara, let's analyze these two shitas. Bishlam Amar lemanda Amar nischai b'hainu Rabbi Chanina. We understand what's going on because it wasn't complimentary that he married into this family. Ela lemanda Amar zakei ma'is chusa. What's the chus of marrying into the family? Says the Gemara. A very powerful idea. You're taka right that it's less likely that they're going to have children, and then that's not good. However, delo asili de safek nida, 2/3 of the way down, 8 lines, 6 lines, 5 lines from the bottom, from the middle width lines, from the wider lines, and the Gemara says at least you'll never have a safek nida. Your wife will never be a nida. So there's no svekos. So there are times in halacha where a rabbi has to paskin a shaila on a bedika, on an undergarment, whatever the case may be, has to paskin a shaila. But at the end of the day, it's a safek nida. Nida's kares, and this person will never have that in their life. Story number 6. She says, I'm still a basula. It was the times of a famine. Which was common for a person's face to be blackened from famine. And then he told his helpers as follows: they took her, they put her in a bathhouse. Him too, they fed him. They gave them a lot to drink. And after they were recuperated, after they had been given a little bit of food and a little bit of water, and they went to the mikvah and they cleaned up and everything, not the mikvah but the bathhouse. So then all of a sudden they saw dam. Amar lo, you've merited a good marriage. Kari Rabbi Aleim, that the pasuk says, that your skin is sticking to your bones. You are dried out like wood, which means that the Gemara is highlighting that sometimes that the reasons why a woman may not see dam is because of external situations. A context is there. And when there's a time of bitzores, when there's a time of a famine, it may well be the case that she is simply not able to menstruate. I'm sure that there are similar scenarios in life which cause for women to have restricted or lessened or lower types of seeing blood. This is very common with birth control now. Some of the birth controls really minimize the periods as they are. New Mishnah. the Mishnah is actually going to be the source for what we started with today. We started talking about the amounts of money for a ksuba. This is the actual Mari Makom, 2/3 of the way down, two lines into the wide lines on Yudamud Beis. Besula ksubasa masayim almana mana. When it comes to a virgin, her ksuba is 200 zuz and an almana is 100. Besula almana grusha v'chalutza mina erusin. But if this almana had never had tashmish hamita, or you're talking about a grusha or a chalutza, all from erusin, they were only halachically engaged, but they never had tashmish hamita, then ksubasa masayim v'yeshtam tanis besula. Then they're regular women. The ksuba is regular. As long as they've never had tashmish hamita, their ksuba is regular. My almana. What is this language of almana? Amar Rav Chana Bagdata almana. Al Shem Mana. It's a notricon. It's a play on words. So Almana is Al Shem Mana, that her ksuba is 100. Says the Gemara, that's great, but Almana mina Erisin Mahikal Mema. We just said in our Mishnah that an Almana from Erisin, she gets 200 and not 100. So why is she called an Almana? Says the Gemara, I did the high kari la Almana, because an Almana who was married and has had tashmish hamita before, because she's called an Almana and she only gets 100. So high nami kari la Almana, even an Almana mina Erisin, even though she was only engaged and never had tashmish hamita and her ksuba was 200, still we call her an Almana. Almana dechzibi b'raisa Michael Meimar. What are you talking about? The Chachamim didn't come up with the word Almana. Almana ugrusha v'chalalat zonas elo yikach. The pasuk in Chumash, we talk about an almana in the Torah, so it can't be that it's based on a mana. Mana, the amount of the ksubas is din derabanan. So how in the world could it be that the pasuk of almana? That's crazy. Says the Gemara, "Da'asid and rabbanan dimitakne lamana." Kadosh Baruch Hu planted it. Kadosh Baruch Hu knows everything; he's above time. So he knew that the Chachamim were going to say that an almana gets 100. So he called a woman whose husband died an almana, even though it was futuristic. Umi kasav kra la'asid. Does the pasuk write things about the future? Says the Gemara, sure does. In the hanar hashalishi chidekel hu haolech kidmas Ashur. The Tanur of Yosef, Ashur zoslika umi havoy ella de asida hachanami de asida. We see the example from Sefer Bereshis about Ashur, which didn't exist yet we still called it that way. And now, from now until the end of the Mishnah on the top of Yud Aleph, we're just going to see plays on words. How do we understand each of these words? So here's the first of those. Says the Gemara, we're about 15 lines from the bottom of the page, almost halfway through the wide lines. Matar, mashke marvu mezabel ma'adenu mamshich. What does rain mean? What's matar? So those are things that are mashke, they water, marva, they saturate, umizabel, they fertilize, uma'aden, they soften, umamshich, and they create continuity. Omar Rava Bar Rabbi Yishmael v'itema Rabbi Yemar Bar Shlamim Mikra. How do we know the impact of water? Tilameha Raveh Nachas Kidudeh Berivim Timogagna Tzamcha Tivarech. What does this pasuk mean? It means that there's abundant water on the ridges, and it settles the furrows. It showers the grounds that you are softening, you are Kadosh Baruch Hu, and you bless it with growth. So we know that this is all about water. What about the word mizbeach? Again, these words are seemingly random. Amar Rabbi Elazar mizbeach meziach. It can clean your slate. Umezin, it can sustain you. Mechabev, it creates closeness between you and a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Mechaper, and it creates kapar. Seems to be, says the Gemara, hainu mechaper, hainu meziach. Two different languages for cleaning the slate. So says the Gemara, meziach gzeros. That when there's meziach is a language that has to do with gzeros. Then Nebuch Kadosh Baruch Hu puts a gzera on someone. So then this works. Then the mizbeach works. Umechaper avonos is based on your actions. You did an aver, you deserve a consequence, and therefore it can clean that slate too. The Amar of Chana Bagdata Tamre. What about dates? Mishachnon, it warms you. Misava'an, it satiates you. Mishalshalon, it helps your stomach. Me'ashran, makes you happy. Velo mefankan, doesn't drive you crazy. It's so sweet, it's so filled with sugar, but it doesn't give people the sugar high there. It's a good thing. These are all complementary. Amar Avachal Tmarim al Yore. We have a statement from Rab that if a person eats dates, they should not be paskening shilas. We know that a person who's a dayan, their smicha is called yore. The yore is that's a big smicha. That's for dayanim. Says the Gemara, if a person eats dates, they should not be paskening shilas. Meisvei, but wait a second. We see that dates are bad if you can't paskin from them, they're doing something negative, but that's not necessarily true. Meisvei, the Brisa writes, Tmarim shachris v'arvis yafos, that for a person to eat dates in the morning and at night is a good thing. The mincha rose in the afternoon, it's not so good. But tzarayim in kamosan, in the actual afternoon, mincha, what depends what time mincha is, middle of the day. And tzarayim at the end of the day is ein kamosan. And eating dates actually helps with three things. Machshava ra, if a person is having a bad thought, the chole me'ayim, stomach issues, tachtonios, which is something like hemorrhoids. So we see that from this brisa, yes, there are times that it's bad. However, primarily dates are good. So it says the Gemara, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with dates, just that iluye malu, they're wonderful. But but it can inebriate you if it's sitting in, if it's fermenting, if it has an alcoholic impact, then it can affect you. The Amar Mara shows revis yayin al yor. Wine's also great, but if a dayan drinks a revis of wine, he shouldn't be paskening any shilas. Some say this is not a problem at all. Some are saying that it really depends. If you eat the dates before bread, that's bad for you. And if you eat them after bread, that's totally fine. Where do we learn this from? Abaye said that he learned from his mother, really his caretaker. His mother died at birth. If a person eats dates before bread, it's like taking an axe to a tree. Basar nahama, if you eat dates after eating bread, ki abra the dasha, then it's like going through a door. Oh, what does the word dasha mean? Dasha we use as a door. It says the Gemara, dasha, amar rava derech sham. It's the way to get to there. What about darga, steps? Amar rava derech gag. The darga, the steps that go up, madregos. So how do you get up? Is derech gag. That's the way to the roof, is to take steps. Puria. Why in Aramaic do we refer to a bed as puria? So this one we could probably intuit on our own. Says the Gemara, Amar papa sheparin v'ravin aleh. The mitzvah pruervu, that should be taking place in the bedroom. The mitzvah pruervu should happen there. Therefore, a bed is referred to as puria. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, turning to the top of Yud Aleph and Mud Aleph, and we'll stop with this line. Af anu nemar islandness, even the word islandness, which is a reference to a woman who is not able to have children, is duchranis de lo yolda. It's a ram that is unable, ayal. It is a ram that is unable to have children. That's why we refer to them as an islandness, because there are some rams that are not able to have children. We'll stop right here. No shiur on Shabbos. We'll pick up Sunday night in Mirz Hashem with Daf Yud Aleph. Wishing you all a beautiful Shabbos.
You gonna figure out what time on Sunday?
I'll figure it out before then.